Hey, Bob.
Hey, Jim. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Bob.
How you doing, Becky?
2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 out of 7. We're missing Melody and George. We want to, 7:01, do we want to go ahead and start?
George just
Or-
sent a note saying he's going to be late, but he will be here. He just sent an email.
Okay.
Sure.
He just sent something?
Yeah.
Does Berkshire East have its trails on the south side of the mountain open? I haven't talked
Nope.
to,
I haven't checked actually, because I think it's Saturday's their first day, so I'm not
Yeah.
even sure they've
yeah,
announced it.
snowmaking would be a real problem this year because it's been so
Yeah.
warm. But of course,
Yeah.
the storm is coming in, but the storm may not favor them all that much because it's a southern storm along the
Right.
coast.
Yeah, but it is going to stay cold for a while, so that.
Yes, yeah,
no.
that's good. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Well, there's a reason for that because for those of us who have to plow our own driveways, like Bob and myself, our lengthy driveways, having a soft surface to deal with a snowplow is terrible. It just plows everything up. It just creates a huge mess. So I like the ground to be frozen. I like it to stay frozen for
Yeah.
the duration.
Are you a skier, Jim?
Yes. And Jimmy Schaefer, the Schaefer family runs Berkshire East, and I know them all very well because Jimmy Schaefer was one of my students at Deerfield Academy. So, I used to take the ski team out there. So I have a long connection with Berkshire East, and I'm very fond of the way they do things out there.
Oh, cool. How long ago did they shut down their own ski trail there?
How long? What?
At Deerfield Academy, they had their own.
No, that's not. That's Eaglebrook's. That's owned by Eaglebrook, and they have
Oh.
snowmaking, and I imagine they can probably turn all that equipment on right now because it's cold enough to do so, but only very, very recently. But that's Eaglebrook. It's not Deerfield.
Okay.
Deerfield land.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm not sure Deerfield still has a ski team because they were eager to cut it, I think, the last time, not long after I left Deerfield some years ago. Because skiing is expensive. You have to cart everybody into a school bus and get them all the way out there and all the equipment and then get them back again in time for dinner, et cetera, et cetera. And it was quite a slog. And it is for all schools that use Berkshire East, and there are a lot of schools that do use it.
Yeah, I've seen some of the like Williams. I've seen them out there.
Yeah, Williams, UConn did all their practices there because they can set courses and the wiring is in place to for the timing circuitry, stuff like that. So they can set courses and train quite aggressively on a variety of slopes.
Oh, cool.
I used to ski nighttime there. It was fun.
Yeah, nighttime skiing. I assume they're still doing nighttime.
They are, yeah, Thursdays and
Yeah.
Thursday through Saturday.
That sounds about par for the course.
Mhm.
Should we start? We do have a quorum. We at least go through the minutes maybe before we have our first budget review. If we want to go ahead and I call a meeting to order.
Sounds good.
Okay. Do we want to go through? AJ sent us out both 2 sets of minutes. One with I think some revisions based on our discussion at our last meeting. Do we want to go through those first?
Mhm.
And Susie sent me a spelling correction, Rita Farrell. You would think I would know how to spell her last name, but anyway, I fixed that in my copy here. So if there's anything else.
Not the wild Rita, the tame Rita.
Any other changes to Bob or to AJ's amended minutes? And these would be minutes of our November 17th meeting. Bob, did you get a chance to go through?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that. Thank you
Okay.
for modifying it.
All right. Do we want to vote on those
Mhm.
minutes?
Sure.
Okay,
I can make a motion to accept the minutes, November 17th.
Second,
okay. I think, Bob, you're the first one.
Okay, Bob says aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye. And now we can go on to the minutes from our last meeting, December 1st.
I'd like to suggest that we add at the end of the highway department's budget review, the sentence, if there is a shortfall in the reduction for catch basin cleaning, the highway should come to the finance committee for a transfer from their reserves.
Did we
Susie, could you
discuss
say
that?
that one more time?
Mhm.
Or does anybody
Yeah,
want to
sorry.
discuss it?
If
If there's a reduction in the,
there's a shortfall with the reduction in the catch basin cleaning line,
Mhm.
highway should come to the FinCom for a reserve transfer.
is that okay with everyone?
And the other thing I feel that caused some confusion from Dan's police budget was in
Oh, yeah.
in the minutes where it's letter I, FY22 proposed budget, that part is just wages. So and it is under the dot about wages, but
Right.
I just
Yeah.
somehow felt like it was
Sure.
a little unclear. So just the word wages fit in there somewhere.
Okay, well, while we're just doing cleanup, just a minor, sergeant, I think there's an E before the A in sergeant.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
It can go either way, actually.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh,
Yep.
Oh, never mind. I've learned something,
And
Educated sergeant with me, though.
I've learned something new tonight.
We use the E, but it does go either way.
yeah, and
It's already been a
Microsoft
successful
doesn't
meeting.
like the E. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, AJ, thanks for getting these out a few days ago too. That give us
Sure.
some time in
Yeah.
advance to.
I'm fine with the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
Has everyone else had a chance to go through?
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes as amended.
Second,
Groves, aye, I vote.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. Okay, and next item on the agenda. We have fire department at 7:15.
Yeah, can I say something about that briefly? Like, to me, this document that we're getting is kind of confusing. It's hard for me to put these requests in any context with the overall budget or. So I don't know, I guess I should maybe open a copy of our budget from 21, or just so I can see what these numbers really represent, and whether they're up, down, or sideways, it's not really that.
Exactly. Yep. Sorry,
Pardon?
they are exactly the same. I went back and put
Oh,
in
okay.
the,
Okay, well, that's just not clear from the document, so.
yeah,
So,
and I,
And I think the budget that went into last year's town meeting is online. So I've been using the yellow sheets we had from last year to look up stuff.
Okay, thank you. I think I have a copy of what we voted on. That's the same, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I did speak with Walter. I do expect him by 7:15.
He's here.
Oh, good. There he is. I didn't see.
Yes, I'm here. Just got out of the Franklin County Fire Chiefs meeting, so.
Hi, Walter.
Hello, Walter.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening, Walter.
Good evening.
So Becky, you said that these numbers are all identical to the prior fiscal year, to fiscal year 21?
Yes. Walter, the reason they're asking,
Oh,
in the instruction sheet, and it must not have been clear because you're the second department that didn't do it, was they requested that we, that both last year's budget and this year's budget be listed in
Okay.
two separate columns so people could quickly see where the changes are. But
okay.
so for next,
What was requested was a level funded budget, so I did submit a level funded budget. I did probably miss that instructions, so I apologize.
I think it was just on the sheet. So if you weren't, and you do your own separately, so you didn't have the reinforcement of it being on the sheet. So
Okay,
it wasn't clear.
all right.
So, Walter, just because I don't see the document, I'd like to ask you, when you
Yep.
say level funded, you mean level services, so that any pay
Yeah.
increases are in addition to the
Level funded.
I'm just asking a question for clarification. I'm not,
Yeah.
no.
Now, basically, the numbers in my operating maintenance equipment budgets, SCBA's, fire hose replacement, turnout gear replacement, the numbers are exactly the same numbers as last year. And yeah, and the only thing that I don't change in my budget, because it's not under my purview, is the salaries.
Right.
And then I also made no capital requests for this year, as was requested.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Walter, I had a question about the phone service, because you went to code red. And I
Yep.
know it doesn't have to be in this group of numbers, but did that stay the same or what happened there?
That's under emergency management, and those numbers we have not renewed yet for this coming year. But I believe those numbers, they have been the same for the last 2 years since we've been using this service.
Okay,
So they are, no, I didn't print out that page.
I believe-
Here it is. Here it is. Yep. In the past, it had always been $2,000. The last 2 years, well, I think last year was supposed to be 15. This year was 1470 was what the bill actually came in as. So it should be about that same next year.
about the same 1470, you think?
I would put in, if you're looking at cutting that extra, I would put in at least 1,500 just to make sure that we haven't addressed that yet. It's still December. We usually don't start talking about that contract till probably about March or April. So, I mean, unless you want me to reach out to the company and say, hey, project ahead more, more than you normally do. Do you think that it's going to go up? I would leave a little bit of room in there just in case it does go up. If you're looking at cutting that, from the 2,000 down, but I wouldn't go less than 1,500, and I might even say leave it at 1,550 just to make sure that.
Yeah, I'm not asking about cutting it. I'm just trying to find the information on it.
Okay. Yep, that's under the emergency management phone notification system. Yeah, the last 2 years it's been 1,470, and I don't expect it to be going up that much. At least not nowhere near up to the 2,000 that it was.
Great.
Walter, could you give us an update on the communication network issue that has been sort of on the front burner for, you're chuckling, whether to go, with something Franklin County.
I'm chuckling because what part of all this paperwork would you discuss? No, I can put it in a nutshell somewhat, without getting too far into the weeds. Back over a year ago, Franklin County as a whole, well, all the groups got together up in GCC, and we did the issues that we were having were our radio system, which is now probably about 8 years over its expected lifespan limit. We're still using it, yet it has some significant issues. And the options that were given to the towns were to either rebuild the entire system ourselves, or the offer was made by the state, which is now they're now calling the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Interoperable Radio System, or COMERS, which is an 700 and 800 megahertz, 25 digital and analog trunked system. And looking at the cost of going to that system versus the cost of rebuilding our own, which we then have to start funding to rebuild in another 15 years. The costs were exorbitant to do it that way. County as a whole, with select board members, finance committee members, police, fire, EMS, and everybody decided to move towards the state system. I will say the state, as much as sometimes they are a pain to work with and jump through all their hoops, they have been very good to Franklin County so far, in the fact that they're understanding that this is the radios that use this system are a much more expensive radio, and in their hopes to get us on using their system. We are working through a grant. They got a grant actually through the state 911 board, which is that, that $1.50 surcharge that you get on your phone bill every month for the 911 services. This whole program, it's a 5-year, 5 or 6 year, $250 million project for upgrading the state's entire 800 system to what they call phase 2 P25 digital trunk system. Franklin County was the only area in the state where what they call B Troop, the state police, were the only part of the county that was actually on the digital system so far. Everyone else is analog. So with that, we were able to move forward a little bit quicker. And in the end, what they're doing is through the grants, they are through quite a process of figuring out who gets how many radios and all that, and still didn't make everyone happy. The state is buying both mobiles and portables, certain amounts allocated for each town. And for the town of Shutesbury, I think I figured it out the other day, between police and fire, what they are buying us as fully subsidized radios, if that's what we go with, is in the range of about between $76,000 and $80-something thousand worth of radios. Significant chunk of money that they have committed to Franklin County to help us make the transition over to the 800 system. They changed their scope of work that they had on their engineering study that was done last year to include, and not only include, but prioritize Franklin County above the rest of the state. So we've been moving forward on that. It's been quite exciting. We have now we went from monthly meetings to weekly meetings with EOTS, which is the Executive Office of Technology, Safety and Security, I believe it is what it stands for. They're the state group that's pushing this or guiding this whole process through. And So we have weekly meetings with them, and we have another weekly meeting locally to discuss what we discussed at the other meeting and get our ducks in a row for the next, what goals we have to meet for the next meeting. And it's been quite ambitious. And as it's looking now, most, if not all, of the radios for Franklin County will be ordered by the beginning of May. Except for there's a few outstanding ones that people are not quite exactly sure what radio they want to do and how much they want to upgrade, which is an additional cost. But it's moving forward fairly quickly, and I can foresee that most of Franklin County by at least July, August, September at the latest of next year will be transitioned over to the new radio system. For the first 3 years anyways, we have an MOA between the town and Franklin Regional Council of Governments and EOTS that there will be no user service fees for the system for those first 3 years, as we are still maintaining the Franklin County system for some time to help with the departments that don't have the ability to switch over right away, and for incoming mutual aid that don't have access to the new Comier system. And also because a viable paging system has not been well established for the 800 digital. So we're still going to be paging off our system. So we're going to have to maintain that. So there will be a user fee, although it'll probably be reduced significantly, hopefully, from what we're paying now. So to not double hit the towns, there is no user fee, at least for the first 3 years, and it may be longer. Not really sure.
Are you happy with there was some worry that the digital system wouldn't hit low-lying areas, valleys, things of that sort, all that
Right.
well?
Going by the map coverage that they have done, which is theoretical, obviously,
Yeah.
doing modeling for terrain and antenna heights and types of antennas and all that stuff. The coverage actually is going to be comparable to what we have now. And once they move to the phase 2 and we go to phase 2 digital, the coverage is actually going to be better. We'll get better coverage throughout the town. And that's one thing. Coverage is one thing. The problem that we have in some of our areas right now is we get too much coverage. We get too many signals from too many towers, and they all interfere with each other. So trying to understand the radio some days is difficult at best. We do have a backup where we have dispatch sends a page to us over our smartphones, and there's another backup to that somebody set up in Shelburne Falls where we get another text audio file. So we're getting notified in 3 different ways of when we have a call, and between those you can usually understand what it is. So coverage is one thing. We almost get too much coverage in some areas and not enough in others with the system that we're using now, but the problem is most of the time we can't understand it. We've lost a lot of coverage on the 202 area because of part of the system that has failed, and we're still struggling to try to get it back up because all the components, or most all the components in the system, are not only end of life, but they're beyond the manufacturer's support. So you run out, that's it. When you run out of bubble gum and duct tape and tin foil to patch it together, it's gone. So, but the coverage eventually, and I'd be willing to say it's 2 years out before they switch this side of the county over to the digital, which is going to be the phase 2 digital. At that point, we're going to have much better coverage than we have now. Both coverage and the clarity of communications is far exceeding what we have now.
You said that there's a fee for the system we're using now. Is that?
Yes.
Is that in your operating line? Is that
It's
where
covered under our operating budget, yes.
Mhm. Thanks.
And right now it's $2,000 and something a year. It's gone up over the last few years just to try to keep our system, going. The one thing about it, at the end, when we've decommissioned the whole system and done everything we needed to close out Franklin County system. Any money that is left in any of the accounts gets sent back to the towns using the same formula that they were used to, the fees the user were assigned that we've paid in. So there's the potential that we could get some money back from that system.
So the state is supplying the bucks to pay for all the equipment. And that's an enormous plus, I would think, because
Oh, yeah.
if we went with something that was homegrown, boy, we'd be in real trouble financially.
Yeah, well, we looked at the best estimates that we got, keeping the same UHF system. We kept the same radios. Of course, all the radios are 15 years or older, and they don't make these models, so you might have to go and buy new radios anyways, although they're cheaper. We were looking at, for the county, at a minimum of $15 million. And then you've got the engineering costs and the time it would take. You'd have to go out to bid for engineering, get the engineering back, then go out to bid for construction, get the construction done. By that time, we're 2-3 years into it out from now. And the costs were just going to stay up there, if not go up. And then you just got to start saying, oh, okay, so in 10, 15 years, we got to do this again. We got to start collecting money for that. So the user fees were going to at least triple, we figured, for the towns if we built our own system. And then we still have to do all the headaches of contracting with subcontractors for doing the work, the maintenance, the yearly maintenance, all the generator maintenance, everything that goes along in the system. There's a lot that goes in keeping it up and running, emergency repairs, everything. Now it all falls on the state, and they got to keep it up for their own use anyway. So kind of takes a lot off of our plate.
Yeah.
I can actually probably get off a couple committees.
Well, that might be good. But because I remember when I attended that meeting with you at GCC, there was still towns that wanted the old system upgraded as opposed to using the state. And I mean,
and there have been some towns that were still hemming and hawing about whether they're going to sign the MOA and all that, and they have finally all agreed that this is.
Oh, that's good news. All right. Because
otherwise they're going to be left behind. Most of the counties going with it, and you either get on board or you get left at the station.
Right.
Walter, just a general question regarding your fiscal year 22 budget.
Yep.
And you're presenting a level funding budget.
Yep.
Are there any pain points that go with that, or are there any specific spots we should be aware of, be thinking about that as a result of going level?
As always, what I try to do to meet the budgets is sometimes you let something go this year and deal with it next year. And as that happens, it gets to the point where I'm trying not to get too far behind the 8 ball, and we are finding ways to get around it. But if we look at where we are already this year, maintenance is almost 70% gone.
Does that mean you've done 70% of your maintenance, or are you going to have challenges? You're going to have some challenges.
It's very possible. It's very possible to have challenges. It's hard to say with maintenance because you don't know what's going to break and what's going to go on. We did spend a bit this year because when we did the transfer of the old rescue chassis and bought the new chassis and put the rescue body on that, and then the association actually bought a flatbed and toolboxes and equipment and upgraded that old chassis to a newer brush truck from our old brush truck. Along the way, once they got the body off, they found some significant issues with the suspension and the fuel system on that, and we ended up spending a fair amount of money that we had not planned on to make that all work. So there was a hit that we hadn't planned on. I know last year we deferred a lot of the annual maintenance on the pumpers, and we're trying to get that scheduled right now. Turned out when we had the vehicles inspected, most of the air tanks for the air brake system on engine 2 need to be replaced. They passed them for inspection, but they need replacement, in the process of, we brought it up to Rose Ledge and had them look at it. We got prices on the air tanks. The air tanks really aren't that much, $160 a piece. There's 3 of them that have to be replaced. It's just then the maintenance to do all that stuff. And we're having the annual service done at the same time. So we're probably talking about, an $1,800 bill right there, for that alone. So yeah, maintenance is one of those things, some years you have more, some years you have less. You try to put off, if, when we're running out, we put off a little bit to the next year, and then we end up hitting the budget fairly hard at the beginning. So if you were to look at any pinch points that I tend to worry about, it comes usually under maintenance and then the operating. Equipment, unless something major breaks and all that, equipment and getting into replacement schedules on that stuff is, we can fudge that, and sometimes that's easier done. I spend some time every now and again looking at Municipid, and we just picked up from another town about, if I had to price it, probably about at least $500, $400 to $500 worth of 1.5 inch hard suction hose I got for $26 and a trip to Bondsville. So, when it comes to equipment, we can get creative with that stuff sometimes. It's not always easy to do that and all, but we lucked out. There's some other equipment that we were bidding on, we did not get. Somebody else wanted to spend more money than we did. But, so things like that, we can make do on equipment. It's the ones that always are the unknown and worry me a little bit is the operating and the maintenance.
Yes.
Thing I will say, to look forward to in future years, part of what I do here is a lot of maintenance on things that we can afford to do. And, for me to spend 2 hours out fixing something is a lot cheaper than 2 hours of driving it somewhere, paying somebody else at $200 an hour to work on something, when we can do it here. At the point that I'm no longer here, unless we have somebody else that has those same skills, that's something that you're gonna have to look at in years to come, that maintenance is probably gonna go up. So part of what my salary covers is the ability to do a lot of the maintenance.
Mhm.
So just something to think about in future years.
You mentioned operating also, and
Yep.
that one is ahead of schedule right now as we're at this point in the year. How do you foresee that ending up for this year, fiscal year?
For this fiscal year, see, again, maintenance operating is one of those things that,
Yeah, I'm talking operating.
yeah, operating. Yeah, it typically takes a big hit towards the beginning of the year because you have a lot of your, the fee for the radio service, the Franklin County radio user fee comes in. A lot of association fees come in. Even, things like that usually fall near the beginning of the year. So it kind of takes a big hit at the end of the year, kind of levels out a little bit, and then it all depends on, how the rest of the year goes. There's certain associations, like we just got to the Franklin County Fire Chiefs meeting. The association dues for that are going to be going out. It's only $150, but things come out at different times of the year. I think typically we do pretty good on the operating. We come close. Sometimes we go over a little bit and steal it from somewhere else, just to fill out the things. But for the most part, we've been operating, although we're always close each year. I'm never too worried about that. It's the maintenance that is the one that is always the unknown, because you never know when something's going to break. like I say, the two ones that I always worry about that don't always have the most say in how it's going to go is the operating and the maintenance. Did I answer your question or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question about how your how your staff, not staff, what do you call them? Not volunteers. Volunteers are doing?
Well, they're not volunteers, but how we are on staffing.
Okay.
Actually, Becky and I were talking about that this afternoon. We have a certain percentage or certain part, group of the department that's pretty long-standing and has a longevity. You pretty solid, and then there's a certain faction that's best described as a revolving door. And we just went through a whole bunch of that right now, where I had a whole rash of people suddenly, we hadn't had anybody want to, take out an application quite a long time. And suddenly we had, within a couple months period, we had 5 people take out applications. Turns out 4 of those have been taken on, but at the same time, we lost 3 existing members. So in all that of, 7, 8 personnel, we had a gain of actual 1. So where our staffing level right now is at 11, that's counting 3 probationary members. So when you look at that, so we have basically 8 people, I'd say 7 with any experience, 1 that's got a little bit of experience, but is, still fairly new. And then the rest are just really, I'd say basically it's 4 probationary out of that 11. So you got 7 that have any experience and 4 that don't have any or very little.
Is the pandemic affecting that process?
It's hard to say. I mean, getting people to come on and retain them has been a big thing. It's not so, and it's usually in the younger people. I mean, we want to get younger people because, us older guys are getting tired of doing some of this stuff and can't do some of it anymore as easily. But with the younger people, they're also a very transient group of people. I mean, we have some people that seem and start off very dedicated, there for everything, making all the calls, making all the training, and then, oh yeah, by the way, Chief, I'm going away next month for the summer. I should be back in the fall, and then they come back and they're good for another winter and spring, and then, oh, I'm going away for the summer again this year. And then you get, I just want to let you know I'm not coming back. And we've had a couple people do that. So, and then the third person that we just lost just joined the Marines. So he's gone for 4 years at least. So, it's hard to say. I don't think the COVID had anything to do with that. I think it was more just life. If anything, maybe the COVID got a few more people to join. I'm not sure. They're around more. They got more time.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely the case for one person, but they ended up in the process when they just started the process. He normally lived and worked in New York, right downtown, and his job was working on Broadway and stuff. And of course, that all fell apart. So he moved back in the area. His family is from the area. He was starting the process, and he was working for a construction company around here also. And he got injured on the job the other day. And so he's no longer able to join the fire department right now. He said that dream just went out the window for him. So yeah, but we wouldn't have even had him if it wasn't for COVID. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of COVID, from a budgeting or maybe I should say more from a this fiscal year's perspective, is that having any impact, either positive or negative on cost? Whether it be equipment or
Well,
whatnot?
no, if anything, our number of calls has dropped this year. And I kind of attribute that to the fact that where people would normally call, think nothing of calling the ambulance for what most people would consider, well, that's not that much. But as I remind all of our first responders, you know, the question is, what constitutes an emergency? And it's different for everyone, but basically an emergency is something that person can't handle. So if somebody runs across an injury or something that they can't handle, they call the ambulance, call the fire department. Those type of calls, because people were afraid to go into the hospital for relatively minor things, those number of calls went down. Some of our calls were people that we respond to quite often. Some of them have passed away. So numbers have gone down. So if you'll probably notice in our salary for calls, that looks like it hasn't been touched. A lot of that too is when like I go on a call, or Mark Foster, who is more a volunteer and he does my inspections, goes on a call, we don't get paid. So if it's a medical call and only the two of us show up, that doesn't show up in the salary line because nobody got additional pay. So there's a lot of that has affected that. So as for the salaries, it's quite low so far this year. As for a lot of equipment, we managed to get a lot through different grants in MEMA and that, so we were able to get a lot of equipment that way, because our number of calls went down, and we changed our protocols now for when COVID really hit and we started getting the calls. We changed our protocols of how we handle the calls just to limit exposure to people and limit use of equipment. I mean, if every call we went on, everybody put on a Tyvek suit and a mask and gloves and face shields and all that stuff, we'd be going through it like it's water. And yes, it get very expensive. But to limit that, we've changed our protocols where it's basically one person that gets geared up on a call like that, to limit the exposure. We limit the equipment that goes in. We have a special jump kit bag that we put limited equipment in, just what we need to do the job. So decontamination of that stuff is a lot easier. So it really hasn't increased in the equipment. Where we're going to see it a little bit is getting rid of the contaminated equipment, having that, you know, medical waste hauled away. I don't know if it's going to increase more than what we already would normally do, but you know, we tend to have a little bit more. Instead of having a medical call where you got 3 pairs of gloves, now you got a medical call that you've got, you know, several pair of gloves, Tyvek suits, you know, maybe some disposable masks. We try to equip ourselves so we have things that are easy to decontaminate, so we're not going through it that much.
Hey, Walter,
Yes.
in terms of that personal protection equipment you just were talking about,
Yeah.
is that funded through any kind of grant from the government?
We got a lot of stuff through MEMA. Yes. There was one time where they were doing a distribution for Franklin County, and talking to Alan Phillips from MEMA, he called and said, yeah, we got some stuff for you. You can come up to GCC and pick it up. I said, yeah. He said, you better bring a pickup truck.
Wow.
Because we filled the back of the pickup truck with stuff. So yes, that all comes to us through federal and grants that MEMA got for procurement, and basically that did not cost us directly anything.
Right, so that doesn't impact our budget. It's really
no. Most of the PPE stuff didn't really impact our budget. The only thing that really did was, you know, gloves. They were hard to get for a while. And you know, the prices went up on a lot of that stuff, but through, you know, working with different, I found some new suppliers because we were having trouble with some of our older suppliers, between that and a lot of the masks that we wear every day, like this, was made by one of our firefighters. They're made with N99 material, better than an N95 mask. They're washable, they're autoclavable. He made them and gave them to everyone at no cost. So, you know, we save a lot there because we're reusing them and disinfecting them and all that, rather than, you know, disposable N95 mask every time we go out and just, you know, creating a lot more waste stream and cost. We're using them as diligently as we can. So yeah, we've been lucky in the fact that we haven't had a big increase in cost for equipment.
Yep.
I appreciate your effort to make it a level budget, and if there is problems, you come to us, but it's great starting, and I appreciate that effort.
Well, like I say, we've tried to keep our budgets within line all the way through. You know, if you look at the history, they've only increased when they absolutely needed to and justifiable. And you know, like I said, capital requests, could I have put some in? Sure, I could have put a lot in, but you know, again, looking at the situation of the town, trying to do our part, you know, we do what we can.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. You know, given the way this year is unfolding, as well as what we expect next year from the revenue side, this effort to maintain cost or reduce cost at this point in time is really valuable. So yeah, we really appreciate it.
All right. You're welcome.
The town appreciates it, I'm sure.
I hope so. Okay.
Any other questions, comments for Walter? Walter, thanks for all your time tonight
You're welcome.
and all the work you and your team are doing
All right.
for our town.
We try. Keep it in mind, we try to do our job. So when I do come and ask for something, it's usually because we need it. All right.
Have a good one.
Okay. We'll see ya.
Okay, we can shift gears and move into library. I see Mary Ann is out there. Hi, Mary Ann.
Hi, everybody else.
Mhm.
You don't have everybody here, all of your members.
Yeah, we're missing two. We've got 5 out of 7.
Okay.
We're missing George Urbanitis. We're missing Melody
Okay,
Cartier.
all right. Okay, well, so I think everybody who's here kind of knows how the library budget is built and a little bit about the state requirements. So, and I was prepared to explain it a little bit more because Melody is new. So I'll
Becky has a comment.
Okay,
Ann, we're recording this and Melody might ask to see it. So if you could put
Okay.
that explanation in, it would be helpful.
okay.
Yeah,
Alrighty.
along the same lines, Susie, I know you've had some history with Finance Committee, but you're, I guess, relatively recent this go around. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, but the notes explained it, and I do remember something.
Oh, okay.
All right, and yes, okay. All right, good. Well, I will explain it anyway. So the state has a certification process for libraries, and towns that have a certified library enjoy lots of benefits. So the most important being that because Shutesbury has a certified library, Shutesbury residents can use any other library in the state that accepts state funding. So that's a reciprocal agreement among libraries that's supported by state statute. And the big part of certification that comes from the town that applies to finances is that the library budget has to increase by, the library appropriated budget has to increase by 2.5% over the average of the last 3 years. So those numbers, so you take the total appropriated municipal income from the past 2 years and then the projected income from the current fiscal year. So there's a little bit of a guessing or guesstimating game. You add those up, you divide by 3, you multiply by 2.5%, and then that gives you the amount that you need to have appropriated by the town in order to satisfy the certification requirement. So last year, you'll remember I needed an extra $16, 1/6. And that was because the 2 years before we had, for various reasons, had gotten a little bit more than the 2.5%. So when you averaged it out last year, all we needed was that $16, and that's all we asked for, and that's all we got. This year, we need $866 to satisfy that amount. So I've added that $866 to our, we've renamed it line number 18 down under revenues, our operating allocation. And I gave you 2 draft budgets. So if we add that $866 in draft budget 1, in that those operating expenses come to $17,856, and the total amount we need from town meeting would be $80,537. Last year when I came to you, I talked to you a lot about my library programming and the different grants that I pursue. I spend a lot of time researching and writing grant applications. I'm pretty successful. And we've been able to offer a lot of programming, and the more programming we offer, the more programming people ask for. So the library now, it's not unusual for the library to have 10 or more programs happening in the course of a week. And, for people from babies and toddlers to senior citizens in town. And it's also not unusual for libraries to have town appropriated programming budgets, but our libraries never had that. It's always either been grant funded or funded by the Friends of the Library. And I would really like to start to build a sustainable programming budget by adding $2,000 to our operating expense line this year. So one of the grants I have is an LSTA grant, which is a federal grant administered by the Board of Library Commissioners. It's a 2-year grant, and this is the 2nd year of it. And then when that funding is gone, it's gone. And we've developed over the last, I think 7 years or so now, we've been developing this ongoing culture of fitness programming in town. And so, mostly for our retired and aging population, which is growing in Shutesbury. And it's a booming business. I have all kinds of people wanting to come to my free library fitness classes. And I've been able to be pretty generous with my time and with what I can offer because of grants and because of the Friends of the Library and partnerships with the Council on Aging and the Recreation Committee in town. And I know from the course of doing my job that it's absolutely essential that these classes be equitable and accessible to whoever needs to come. And not everybody can afford to pay for fitness classes or has the time to travel outside of town to fitness classes. So we've created this really good culture of programming that that's community building and good for the health and well-being of the town. And so I'm really hoping that the Finance Committee will be able to begin to support library programming by increasing our operating allocation this year.
Mary Ann, I'd like to ask you, I know that we all know what's going on in the country and in the state and in the town with the COVID and so forth. And I know that, many institutions, schools and libraries and others have really curtailed or reduced or even eliminated a lot of their hours and their accessibility, certainly to the public for obvious reasons. So with that in mind, in that context, does the state, as a state, willing to make any accommodation with their demand that everybody raise the budget in the COVID year? It seems to me that they might be looking at that. Have you heard anything about that?
So there's a waiver process. If a library, if a town is unable to give a library the appropriation needed to maintain certification, there is a waiver process. You can apply for a waiver. It's a lot of work for Gail Weiss. And then you have to make up the waiver. The way you get out of the waiver is in another year, you make up the amount. The town has to make up the amount. So there always has been a waiver process. In order to qualify for a waiver, the library would have to not suffer disproportionate cuts than other town departments. So you have to justify it.
If I may, I'm very aware of that whole subject and the ins and outs of the waiver. But what I'm talking about is a COVID emergency that's going on that is resulting in very, very serious problems with many people to pay their taxes, and where a lot of communities support their budgets. So people have, different towns have had a lot of pressure put on their budgeting process because ultimately, of course, the people that pay the taxes may be suffering because of this financial situation statewide. So what I was wondering is if the state has said anything about this requirement for certification with that in mind, not with the waiver process, which you describe and I'm aware of, but with the COVID emergency.
Not for this particular requirement.
Okay.
They have made adjustments for other requirements. So another requirement for certification is that libraries be open a certain number of hours a week, and libraries open, that phrase has a definition, and offering curbside pickup doesn't satisfy that definition. So many libraries across the state are not allowing people into their building. We did for a few weeks, and then the numbers just skyrocketed. And it's so difficult to have people into our tiny little library, and the sanitation requirements are just overwhelming for me to manage as just one person. So when the cases skyrocketed, I just said, it just doesn't seem safe in that tiny space where, there's not even water to wash the floor or my hands. But anyway, so one of the requirements is that libraries be open a certain number of hours a week. They're waiving that requirement. And then another requirement is the materials expenditure. And so libraries are required to spend a certain percentage of their budget on new materials for the library. And if libraries are unable to do that, and they can justify it, they can, that requirement can be adjusted, but that's for this current fiscal year. And the town of Shutesbury the town appropriated budget doesn't meet our materials expenditure already, our materials expenditure requirement already.
By the way, it's
So-
really wonderful that we have a lot of digital materials that we have the ability to access, given our wonderful.
Yeah, they're wonderful. They're expensive. We pay a lot of money for them.
Right.
Digital materials.
But they are totally hygienic, unless you get some kind of virus in your computer.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So far, so I never stopped giving people library materials. Some libraries did stop providing access to their collections. I never did, right from the beginning. We did curbside pickup, and then a few weeks as I was watching the science and the news, I got a little bit leery of that. And so we started mailing things to people. And then we went back then I got kind of leery of going to the post office. I didn't feel like that was safe for me. We read some more of the science and we said, okay, we think it's safe to quarantine things for a few days and then circulate it. And so far nobody has gotten COVID from the library that I know of. And our circulation is quite brisk.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just maybe a similar question to what Bob had earlier. I'm just trying to calculate this $866 increase on that would be on the library expense line.
Right.
That's a 5% increase. And I guess I'm just sort of surprised.
Oh, but it's the whole budget. It's the whole, so it's not it's not a percentage of that library expense line. It's a percentage of the town appropriated budget for the library. So if you take the salary line and that operating allocation and the money I get from dog tax, add those together.
Okay.
And it's 2.5% of that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
It's not just that line.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. I thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yes. Thanks for asking the question.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
Becky,
You're muted, Becky.
Becky,
Thank you. Marion, do you know where your circulation numbers are compared to normal? I'm sure they're down, but
Oh, they are. Well, I did a circulation report last month. So our digital circulation is up. Our physical circulation is down, but I can't tell you a percentage. But our circulation is still, so our library has the second highest circulation for small towns in Massachusetts. And our circulation is still, it's still the second highest, if not the highest and we blow everybody else out of the water. So when we think about the state requirements, so there's different aspects of the library budget. There's meeting the state requirements. That's one thing. And then there's meeting the library needs of the town. And so with the extra $2,000, I'm asking the town for $82,537, which is some, tiny percentage of the whole town budget. And when I think of the services that people use, it's, I feel a tremendous amount of responsibility to meet the clamor for library services. So when a family calls and they want, so what I've been doing is I've been filling bags with books for families and You know, and I just feel like they have to be fresh and interesting and, you know, and of value to the children. I mean, and, you know, and so our circulation is down, but it's still really meaningful and important to the people who live here. Or, I mean, people are telling me that the library is a lifeline for them. There's nowhere else they can go. There's nothing they can do. They're isolated from their friends and their family. And you know, occasionally they get to see people in a library program on Zoom, just like this. Or they got to go and visit a story walk on the town common, or and there were as many retired people who sent me messages of appreciations for the story walks on town common and between town hall. I saw married couples out there. I saw people walking their dogs, and I saw, you know, dads with babies and carrier packs. I mean, you know, and you know, so these little things that we do that cost a little bit of money are so meaningful and valuable to the town, and they make Shutesbury a good place to live. And so there's meeting the state requirements, but there's also having the funding that I need so I can do my job and meet the needs of the community and breathe.
AJ,
Quick question on the budget. So I see that both of the salary lines are flat, and is that those numbers subject to changes based on like cost of living uses that will get determined later in the year? Maybe Beck can clarify for me.
Is anybody else getting muddled audio?
Yeah.
AJ, we couldn't hear you very well. It was
Oh.
all staticky.
All right, I'll come back a second. I'm gonna check phones.
I know what his question. So his question was, so he said the salary lines are flat and and are those lines subject to, you know, action? So whoever decides whether or not town employees get raises later in the year.
Yes.
And
AJ, we do ask all the department heads to only notify us if there's changes in hours to a position. And any rate changes are addressed by Personnel, Finance Committee, and Select Board. And they're added across the board to all employees before town meeting.
I thought that was the case, but thanks for confirming. Okay.
there's your audio is fixed.
Okay.
Yeah, what was that?
It's my headphones for some reason. Yeah.
Mary, just to help for clarification, you talk about a draft 1 and a draft 2, and the difference is the $2,000. So
Yes.
are these like two different possible scenarios, and you're proposing that we all agree on the draft 2? I think is what
I would love it. I would love it. I would feel a little breathing room if you agreed on draft 2. Draft 1, I need to you know, to continue this sort of the status quo and meet my certification, you know, meet those state requirements. And draft 2, that's draft 1. Draft 2 makes me feel like I feel like I can safely continue the services that people are used to and depend upon.
And am I correct in saying that change in budget 2 is basically bringing that budget line back to what it was in FY20? Am I reading that correctly?
No, I've never had a reduction. It increases that budget line by an extra $2,000.
Okay.
So, but well, by 2,000 more than I need to maintain my certification, but by the amount that I feel like I need to begin to provide sustainable services.
I guess what I'm confused by then is that I thought, if I'm reading this correctly, that the budget line for programs in FY20
Oh,
was
okay.
also $18,000.
Yes.
It's kind,
So,
you're
so that's
bringing
the
this back
actual
to what
amount
it
I,
was then?
right, yes, yeah. So, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'll probably spend less money on programming this year. And I, you know, and I think I spent less money on programming last year. There were programs that got canceled at the end of the fiscal year that we didn't, you know, then we moved some stuff online and then we started to do some other kinds of programming. But yes, yeah.
Just to, so I'm clear, Mary Ann, that budget line for programming was supported by grants which will be no longer available. Is that so?
Some portion of it, yes.
So that means
Yeah.
the town will pick up that portion that will not be available.
Well, so that the grant that I'm in year 2 of now, it's 3,500 this year. It was 4,000 last year. It's 3,500 this year. It was a $7,000 grant. It was a $15,000 grant that I shared equally with Wendell, but so we got 7,500. And so I'm not asking for 3,500. I'm asking for a portion of it. And then I also, you know, will pursue other grant funding.
One of the state's things to do that they do on a regular basis, I've noticed it's about the FinCom, is to offer grants to communities for whatever purposes that they might deem desirable, then to extinguish the grants with the notion, with the hope that communities will fund them on their own when the grants program finishes up. So I find that somewhat annoying from a financial standpoint. Not that I don't support some of these programs, but it's just one of the tricks that it causes the budgets to pressure up. That the state and then they also like to mandate things that we should do that they don't pay for. So like, for example, this rule that we have to increase budgets every year, whether we want to or not, or we lose some accreditation. You know, that doesn't seem to be any kind of reasonable basis for accrediting an institution that they spend more every year. They should be accredited because they provide services that are reasonable, equitable, and up to some standard. Not the money. The standard of spending more money is not one that I find reasonable. That's not your doing. We've had discussions about this before. I won't get into it now, but that does irk me that the state can put this kind of a rule out there that doesn't really address issues of quality or service, but rather spending.
And I would say that the state's goal is to help ensure that the libraries have the resources they need so that they can provide good, adequate, equitable services. And you know, and really, you know, I do a lot. I do more than I every day I say, that's it, I can't do more. And yet I continue to do more because people ask for more and they need more and they deserve it. And so I see the state requirement as a piece that helps ensure that I can meet the needs of the people who live in this town.
Becky, it looks like you had your hand raised
Yeah.
earlier.
Mary Ann, it looks like, I see you're asking the town for an additional 2,000, but you've already asked the Friends for an additional 3,500. And it looks like you're doing that to make up for shortfall in state grants and federal grants. Is that what is happening?
Yeah, and that will be, you know, so it's a budget, it's a living document. The Friends of the Library are fully supportive of, you know, of supporting the programming and the services that the library provides. Um, they're always there ready to help. And then if we don't have to call on them, that's money they have for when there is a shortfall. It's interesting. So this year, with with some services being down because of COVID, so some of the Friends fundraising is down because of COVID too. But people are still very generous and very supportive, and it's just a relief to know that they're there. So
Thank you.
Jim,
Yes, Marianne, all of the departments that we've talked to up to now and probably will continue to do so have all level funded their budget, or in some cases, like the highway department, have reduced their budget. Would you characterize your budget as level funded or not?
I would characterize draft 1 as level funded. So because it's just the amount that I need to maintain that certification. And draft 2, and I thought about draft 2. I thought about not asking, but when I came to you last year, I said I was going to ask. And so I would characterize draft 1 as level funded and draft 2 as asking for a slight increase. And, while COVID is creating concern about finances, it's also creating demand for library services. And it has made operating the library what used to fall on me and 2 very, very part-time staff people and a whole, great rambunctious group of volunteers. It really falls on me and 1 other staff person. We can't be in the building together at the same time. And I really cannot have very many volunteers helping in the library either. So, and other departments haven't had a reduction in the help because they don't run on volunteers like I do. Every time I have so over the summer, I did have some teenager volunteers who could work outside, and that was really helpful. And now it's just nerve-wracking to have volunteers. There's someone here tonight who volunteers in the library, and I'm always afraid that I've infected her after she leaves. So, so maybe the library is a little bit different because the demand for services, the demand for the work I do is higher. And it's, for months I had to run my own interlibrary loan program because the state's interlibrary loan program was shut down. So I was either driving myself or sending a posse of volunteers all over Western Massachusetts, picking up materials from other libraries. I think you would find it hard to find somebody in town who didn't get what they needed during that time. Sometimes I wasn't quite friendly about it, a couple of times. I was cranky, but I still got them their stuff. So I haven't had to say no. And now is not the time to stop providing these services to people.
Becky,
I just want to mention in the last, when you spoke with Walter, the question about how do you have grants or do you have PPP available? How is there a financial burden to the library on that front? So I just want to clarify, Marianne has put in plexiglass in the library. She's put in an ERV unit. And and PPE. She goes through more than most other people as because of the cleaning required of all the books and bagging she was doing and having no water. And those have been paid for out of the CARES grant funding. Marianne has worked closely with me to pay for all kinds of smaller ticket items, but essential items. And we've used what Walter could spare, but we've also, and what the election workers also were supported by the CARES Act. But the state came through with boxes of sanitation equipment, wipes, and jars of hand sanitizer, which Marianne is now using that to help keep costs down there too. But she has had to do a lot of purchasing required by responding to COVID in a safe way, and it has all been grant funded with her resourcefulness, finding cheapest prices and through the CARES money being available to the town.
Becky, how much of that CARES money do we have left? We had, what, 105,000? Or was it 110 or 12 or something like that? How much of it have we used, and when does when is the end of the road for that?
It was $156,000.
Oh, 56, okay.
Yeah, and a chunk of it went to the regional school, is going to the regional school, as well as multiple departments, I think, in the elementary school. So I think at this point, there's about a $20,000 balance, but I'm trying to max it out before December 30th with some other requests that programs that are still in the works. So I
So
can't give you a solid figure, but we're trying to use it all appropriately.
So it runs out on the end of the year.
Yeah, and they've been
Okay.
clear to say it's the 30th if you, not the 31st. So if you buy something on the 31st, they're not going to reimburse you.
Yeah.
That just reminded me that we'll get, I have new expenses because of COVID, and I don't think they're going to go away. So, so I have curbside pickup, and then for a few weeks, and then we'll also return to in-person visit. And we needed a online scheduling system for that. Not for me. I was willing to do the work of the telephone and the emailing back and forth, but patrons demanded it. And a good, reliable online scheduling system comes with a fee. And we, like the town has a couple of Zoom accounts, the library has a Zoom account. The library uses its Zoom account almost daily. Zoom accounts aren't free. I still have to market the library to the community. That's part of my job. And so now I need more online marketing tools. Online marketing tools, if they're good and useful, come with a fee. These are all small fees, but they add up. And so my expenses, which the town appropriated budget has never covered all of the library's expenses. And those kinds of expenses, which when we talk about fundraising for the Friends of the Library, we talk about funding the fund stuff because that's what the Friends of the Library should do. And the Friends of the Library doesn't want to they pay for the Zoom account because it's for programming, but they don't want to pay for the Calendly platform or the Padlet or the things like that, or so maybe Becky, you can pay for the mop and bucket I just bought. So with CARES Act. And I got tired of using, of using the mop from town hall and, having to go over to town hall and get the mop or bringing my mop from home. The last time I washed the library floor, I did it on my hands and knees with towels. So I bought a mop, big expense. It's, and so even if with that, that extra 800 and some dollars that I need to be certified, I'm still doing more with less. Sorry, Susie, you were trying to speak. So.
Susie,
One thing that's happening in the town is there's quite a few new people moving in, and the library is one of the places people can interface with it. It's difficult in the pandemic, but it's still necessary. And so programming helps do an outreach to new people who, some of them are a little shocked coming out here in the rural isolation, and add that pandemic factor. Have you seen more new people showing up in the programming?
We have new people in the programming. We have new people coming and getting books. That is, or asking, getting library cards and asking about how to access the online resources. But we do have, it's really amazing. We have new people with small children, which is excellent because they will be populating our elementary school in a few years. Coming and getting bags full of books. And it's really been lovely. I mean, some of them I've never actually seen, like I haven't seen them because I put the bags of books out on a cart and they come and they take them. Some of them Ella saw over the summer when she was handing out the take home summer reading kits. But I have a lot of new people. And then the select board and I organized a new resident meet and greet. And we just had a few people come, but it helps people connect to the town. And then if they have questions about how or where to do something, they know that there's somebody that they can ask. The good thing about the library is I still do go in 5 days a week. We have been able to, to provide, I think, a pretty decent level of services in a pandemic for a library with such a small staff.
Jim,
How has the coming of broadband to Shutesbury made the library's life easier in some respects?
Oh, I can't say that broadband has made the library's life easier. So I would say it has made it possible for me to offer more online resources. So I added, so I already had, because I knew broadband was coming, I had already added two video streaming services. And then I was in the process of doing one just before the pandemic hit. And I was able to get the work done and launch that on April 1st. So that has made Shutesbury residents' lives better because there are these free video streaming services. While there's quite a bit of upfront work to make those happen, and then there's a bill every month for each of those services that the library pays. So there was upfront work. It's not a lot of work other than paying the bills and keeping track of the statistics and coaching people through using it. Each platform is different, each device is different. So I do spend a lot of time coaching people. So that's made things better. So as far as like the internet service is better at the library, I have more bandwidth. I lost my CW Mars tech support. So now I'm tech support. But overall, it's much better for the town because there are more, they can access the digital services easier. And we wouldn't be able to have the online fitness classes like we do now if people didn't have it.
What content is in these video streaming services that you're offering? What is the content? Yep. What is the content? What's in that, what's being streamed?
Okay, so one is Acorn Media, so it's British television.
Mm-hmm.
Another is Canopy. It is documentaries and Criterion Collection and indie films. And the third is Hoopla, and Hoopla is video, it's movies, television, and it's also audiobooks. So that's their platform. They have books too. That's more popular, sort of mainstream popular materials. So those are the three streaming services.
Is this streaming service, are they limited to Shutesbury residents only, or can Shutesbury residents locate those services most anywhere?
So you have to live in Shutesbury to access those 3 services, but you don't have to be in Shutesbury. So, for instance, when my husband and I went to Big Bend National Park last year, 2 years ago now, we streamed a Canopy video in our hotel room. So, you know, a library video. So in Texas, through the library, through my library card. So you have to have a Shutesbury library card. And if you live in Shutesbury and you have a CW Mars card, your home library field should be listed as Shutesbury.
Mhm.
Sometimes people who either got their library card before we were CW Mars members, their home library isn't listed as Shutesbury. And sometimes the people who have Amherst addresses, which that's actually a big problem. So they, you know, they live in Shutesbury, but they have an Amherst address, and their home library field gets listed as Amherst. It's easy to fix. I just have to know it needs to be fixed. But, you know, so if they go to the Sunderland Library and get a library card made, which happens, you know, or they go to the Forbes or the Jones, and they put in their address that's on their driver's license. It says Amherst, Mass. But then we just fix those. And then, so you have to, your home library field has to be Shutesbury. So.
But I guess my point is that these services are available from a variety of sources. I mean, the internet is broad, as we know, and you can find just about anything on the internet. So I just was curious about the exclusivity, so to speak, of what these streaming services are for Shutesbury.
So you could find these things on the internet,
Yeah.
but not for free. So, you know, you can get an ebook. You can buy an ebook from Amazon. You can buy a hardcover book at Barnes and Noble. But you have to have money to do that. And libraries provide free, equitable access to books and media. So that's why we offer these platforms, because these are library specific platforms. These vendors only, you know, these are only products that libraries have access to.
Well, there are other places to find it, needless to say, but it's complicated. The internet's a big place.
Complicated and maybe illegal. So yeah.
Okay, any other questions, comments? I guess my question I have, there's a couple of different proposals out here for the budget. How do we want to reconcile that as a committee? Any thoughts? Bob? Bob, you're muted.
My view is not particular to the library or any other department, but I've said from the beginning of this process of us building our budget that I was very concerned about the COVID and its impact on the taxpayers. I consider my job as a member of this committee to represent their interests. Can you hear me?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I just, in that light, my view about the guidance that I would try to give to all department heads is to have a flat or reduced budget so that we can control spending in this town. And because of our concern, or at least my concern, and I think it's shared by the rest of the members of the committee, for what potential impacts this COVID will have on our taxpayers. And as Mary Ann said about some of the about some of the gifts coming in and the other aspects of activity at the library. A lot of people have been affected by COVID in a way that makes it harder for them to contribute to the library. Well, just in similar fashion, it's harder for them to gin up the money for their everyday expenses and including their taxes. So I think as a matter of prudence, we should be planning on a very minimum to have a level funded budget. That's my view. I've expressed this in the committee. It's not particular to any particular department, but I think overall we should be very cautious with our spending this year because we have so many unknowns. We all know about that. We don't know what the state money is going to be. We don't know what the employment situation will be come winter, and the impacts of this pandemic are still rippling through our national and local economies. So again, I just want to be clear, I'd like to see the town's departments level fund or reduce their budgets this year and try to operate very leanly. So I think that would apply to my consideration of any increase in this budget as well.
Mary Ann, I think you had your hand up.
So I just want to clarify, I didn't say that that people weren't giving to the Friends of the Library this year. I said that the Friends of the Library weren't doing sort of the level of fundraising that they've done in past years. So the Friends of the Library does sort of two different kinds of fundraising. So there are sort of the appeal where you send out a mailing and ask for donations. That's sort of a traditional kind of fundraising. And then there's the bake sales and the spring spruce ups where, people were sort of the grassroots on the ground doing something. We usually do 3 or 4 dinners at the athletic club and bake sales at election day and selling Shutesbury stuff. And so those we have had a tag sale most springs, and we haven't been able to do those things. But as far as response to appeals, giving has been very generous. So,
Susie.
So Jim, in terms of the finance committee's process, I thought at this point, rather than trying to make a choice or reconcile budget proposals, we were taking them in, clarifying any details we needed. And then as the year goes on and the revenue picture begins to get no clearer, but maybe, then we start making decisions about how to put it all together, what problems we can solve, and what budget we'll end up with in April. Is that right?
That's more typical, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds sensible to me too.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? I'll just say, Mary Ann, thanks very much for everything you've been doing, hanging in there this year and keeping things going under very difficult conditions. And you talked about some of the challenges you have cost-wise, dealing with some of the new protective type gear you need or need to work with, and other challenges with regard to things maybe drying up a little bit and finding ways to still continue to provide the community with those services that they'd expect and really crave for. So it's quite a challenge. I think we recognize that challenge and making do with maybe less or.
thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susie.
Okay, where are we? I've got state budget updates on the agenda. Becky, is there anything you want to?
I think the cherry sheet, well, did everyone? Oh, that's free cash calculation. So we did it's indirect state update. Our free cash did get certified and everybody saw that. Have you all seen that?
No,
No,
I don't recall.
So-
Email it to us?
what?
Did you email it to us?
it's not sounding familiar to me.
Yeah,
Okay, I must not have gotten it out. I was waiting for them. We're working on an adjustment to it, but the current number is 1,378,767.
that's free cash, not stabilization or both.
That's free cash.
Can you repeat that, please, Becky? 1,000,000
Yeah.
three.
1,378,767.
Wow, so it changed by $12,000 from year to year, right? Because it was 1389 as of, well, I guess as of July 1st, 2019. In our report that we sent out to everybody, it says it's 1,389,680. Barely moved. Is that right?
Well, we put money against the budget last year, right? And then we got money in, so the
Yeah.
net difference was that.
Right. So we basically used what we brought in. Is that
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
that's a fact. I like that.
Okay, and as far as updates from the state level, there was the movement of the cherries sheet getting solidified. We touched on that at last meeting, right? I apologize if I'm,
Yeah, I think we did. I think we basically, we got the next level of, what is it, the state or the Senate House
Yeah.
finally bought off on what was previous, the same number, right? The same level funding
yes.
number that was previously out there.
Yeah, so the two key elements of the state budget for us, the Chapter 70 school money and the UGA money, the unrestricted funds came in as we had projected. I think there was a few $1,000s difference, but overall it was as expected. And we have presently no timeline on FY22 numbers. And that is the budget we're working on.
Yep.
So
You don't have any idea or any guesstimate or?
I think there's hope that in January, the governor will put something out, but I know it's very much dependent on trying to reconcile all the COVID funds that have come to the state.
Right.
And I haven't heard that they've been able to resolve the balance on all the additional funding.
Just for your information, I read today that the deal supposedly struck by Pelosi and McConnell, I guess, or I guess it was Manchin from West Virginia, was a very much reduced amount for state and local aid from the previous package that they had been talking about. So that doesn't look at the moment very cheerful for Massachusetts to recover some of these additional expenses.
I think they also, but they're also talking about having another funding bill in after Biden takes office,
Yeah.
right?
Biden definitely said he was going to follow up with one.
yeah.
So I think they're trying to just address an emergency situation at the moment, and then they'll regroup once they can get a handle on the financial condition of the country.
I wonder if Georgia's going to have anything to say about how
Okay.
much aid we get in the future.
I was gonna say Georgia has a great deal to do with it, and
Yes.
however that goes really determines about, what kind of money is going to be flowing into the state's coffers.
It sure does.
I have some questions on these preliminary cherry sheets that we got. First of all, they were called preliminary, but then I believe the governor signed the budget. So these numbers really are fixed now? The ones that
I
say
believe so, yeah.
preliminary? Yeah. Okay, and so when I looked at the bottom line of each one, it looked to me like, so I'm reading the total estimated receipts line. on each of the towns. It looks like Amherst is going down 152K, and Leverett's going down 66,000. And Pelham, it looks like it's going down 162,000. And Shutesbury's going up 38,000. So what is the significance of those numbers? I mean, I don't understand why Pelham would get wonked like that.
Okay, so the big issue is you're looking at chapter 70, and that section of the cherry sheet includes the assessments for school choice and for charter schools. That's where you're seeing the big movement.
Okay, and so the big movement really does affect the way the town is going to be able to, our 4 towns in our region are going to be able to function. So it's not just that chapter 70 money was held pretty much the same across the board. It's also that there's other things that go up and down. And so when you look at the bottom and you look at the percentages that towns are changing, it's like Pelham has a 19% decrease. So
Susie,
yeah.
I'm just not sure if you're looking at one section, but you have to look at both sides.
okay.
Because you also have money coming in for charter and choice.
Okay.
So you have to look at both together.
Okay, but what about the idea that just from the past year, it changes downward? Is that a real change? I mean, we know that Pelham was going to lose some people, some probably choice and some regular students. So I just want to find a way to look at what's happening to these towns. And so you're saying the cherry sheet is not the, it's not
I'm just saying,
definitive.
the sheet has 2 essentials. There's the credits and the debits on the cherry sheet. It's the assessments and the money coming in. So you really have to look at both of those. And I don't think the totals are there. So I'm just saying, let's review it again and bring it to the next meeting, just to be sure, because I didn't pull it up.
Okay, so maybe I would also like some tutoring for somebody to help me read these sheets to make some useful information out of them.
I'd be happy to do that.
Do we have room? Do we have room in one of the future agendas that we can spend 15 minutes with Becky walking us through it? For everybody's benefit.
Yeah.
Why don't we add that to the agenda for the next meeting?
Sounds good.
Yeah, if we can.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a brief question, Becky. Does this cherry sheet reflect the enrollment numbers from October 1st, whatever? Because that's a significant factor here, is it not?
This is the 21 cherry sheet. So we already did that enrollment.
From last year, right?
Right.
And the goof hadn't hit yet. Do we know if the state's working on a way to address the enrollment issues? They are. We are hearing that. Good.
Yeah. Comerford spoke of addressing the issue, and she's pushing for it to be, they're trying to find a way to make it a neutral impact like they did this year.
Mhm.
And I don't know if they'll use the same method or not. They might come up with a new method to address some of the changes, but not all.
Maybe might be one of the benefits of Amherst's position at the 4-town meeting might be with the message that Mindy and Joe heard. I think that's part of what Amherst was doing, quite honestly. They knew who was in the room. I hope.
Well, they've been contacting them individually, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right up to it.
Yeah, they've been talking very closely with them.
Yeah.
Their select board. So no, that's a good point, Susie. Let's review that at the next meeting. I'll make sure we put it up on the screen to review. With Jim's help.
Okay.
Becky, are we going to be able to spend down that 20,000 and it's of that CARES Act money? It's just sitting there. I just hate to see it slip away from us at the end of the month.
It's very possible.
Use your
But
imagination.
It might not be all of it. What?
Use your imagination.
You have to have records.
As I'm sure it's not going to be repeated. I don't think there's going to be any more CARES Act money after that.
You gotta take it when it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because so many states were not impacted early. And
Wow.
I don't know how they're playing catch up. Like in Texas, they were still in denial
Yeah. Well.
that COVID existed. So
Don't worry, they're seceding from the union, so.
Yeah, that's not the only thing they were in denial about.
Indeed.
Has the school talked at all about a tent for the spring? Is that
well,
come up?
see, the problem is, and the reason I think we will see more CARES money is that this CARES money has a time, it disappears December 30th. And if we're still struggling in March and we had, depending what happens in Georgia, there's a good chance there'll be more money if they can figure out how to find it and utilize it.
Especially if Texas doesn't spend all its allocations.
Yeah, there'll be all Texas money to spread around.
There you go. There you go.
Probably Minnesota, Idaho, Wyoming,
Don't forget the Dakotas.
yeah, and the Dakotas.
Dakotas.
'Cause
Yeah, they'll be asking for it. The political field will change a little bit.
Yep. They'll figure out they should have taken it the first time, but it does have to be spent before that time. So
Let's spend what we can. I hate to see it go away
yeah,
because
but I would hate to get dinged and have to pay for inappropriate spending.
yeah.
So there are pretty strict requirements, and I have gotten some things authorized that push the limits. So I don't want to get caught. I don't want to create a town liability either. So.
And it's a lot of work, and you've been doing it. So thank you.
But so far so good. We're recouping money. We've paid for some things that have been essential, and they will help our budgets in the future.
Have you heard any reports about the return to school for the K through second graders and how that's going, and do they have all the supplies they need? And
I've found some PPE that that was for them that is going to be very helpful. Walter has 1,000 KN95 masks that will be going to the school, and that should save them. We won't, we could spend CARES money on it, and that's been the tricky business right now is making sure you get what you need, but is it available in time, and knowing exactly what it is you need. But I've been working with the school on some, I've been in the negotiating team, so I'm also been on the MOU calls, but I've also been following up with the principal to make sure that I can, I'm in a position where I can connect, where I know where supplies might be in town where other people don't. So that's been useful, and I hope to do a little more of that before the month is over.
yeah, I guess I bring it up just because, we're basically just, they're just starting the process of reintegrating students back into the building. So I wonder, if there are things that we can learn in this first week or two of return to school about just what the needs for those kinds of expenses, and then if all goes well in January, we're going to have a couple more grades go into the school. So I guess it would be great if and I'm sure they're doing this, but if they're, could spend some time just really analyzing what the needs for those kinds of supplies are going to be, given that they're just now starting to really dig into them.
Well, they also have been projecting these since they started working on their plans in the summer.
Right.
The changes to the building, they have had, Jamrog has gone through and certified that they have, I think, 2.5 time circuit, the air circulates out of each room. Well, it varies from room to room, but it's a minimum of, a max, 2 times is the minimum. And all the classrooms meet that. So the air circulation system is in good shape and functioning well.
Does that include the gym or the multi-purpose room, do you know, or have they tested that, or?
I believe so. I'll have to check the
Okay.
list. I have the list. But they also have, they had to buy about at least 20 new desks that came from CARES money. They've had to, what else did they get? Oh, we were able to put all the computers that they had to buy and iPads off of CARES money. So that's,
That's great.
that was a really big one. So it's not going to come out of our budget. And we were able to put, the custodians have been working nonstop, setting up different arrangements so they can get the separation that's required, the 3 to 6 feet, and they've been pushing for 6 feet as much as possible. And they've established schedules where they're all using different exits so that you don't have cross pollination and breathing on students. We've purchased 2, and I thought there was going to be 3. We didn't get the foot push fountains, but they got these drink, where you use a canister you just fill up your own canister for water, so you don't have kids slurping their germs on a drinking fountain. 2 of those were installed a few weeks ago. So there's, we've been taking precautions. The school has been taking precautions and putting in what they can, and where there's room to put in things that will help increase the health by not having germs spreading as much as they were before. So those were the items that they asked for, and we've been able to secure those things.
That's great. That's exactly what we would want that money to be spent on. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
terrific. Yeah.
Definitely.
Susie,
The school newsletter, which I get electronically, it's for general parent and town consumption, said that things were going pretty well, and that it's been a wise idea to start off with this a smallish group, watch how it works out. And so I know that in general, they were feeling their planning was paying off.
that sounds like a committee report.
Well, the other piece about it is I did get their draft budget, which you would have gotten too. And one thing that might not be that obvious is that the central office in the Irving building, they decided to move out of that, and they've distributed the staff in the other school buildings. So there's a reduction in having to pay rent in the Irving building. I guess that would be called the Irving Town Hall. No, the Irving something.
It was the Council on Aging.
At the Council on Aging building. So they're not paying for that rent, and they've distributed the staff over the other schools, which has some benefits. And they managed to get most of the furniture that they needed. And Bruce happened to be in the right place at the right time and got that furniture either cheap or for free. And so so that you'll see there's a reduction in the budget because they're not paying rent. And then also Shutesbury's population did not go down as much as some of the other towns. So Shutesbury's portion of the U28 budget is a little higher. So we won't be talking about that budget till January, I believe. But just in terms of what they're doing, those were moves meant to help save money and change up the way the staff was more integrated into into all the schools.
Yeah, that's a great thing to happen, that the regional administration is now in the schools. I think it's a good thing for the region and for the people in all the towns to have better connections with their staff. I think it's, and you know, they weren't going to be able to keep in that office forever anyway. I think they were getting a subsidized rate. So it would have represented a big increase in cost to us for them to get their own building or something, you know.
So is that for the long run? That's just not for FY22? They think they're going
Right.
to do that permanently?
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
And it took,
It is
a lot of effort when people had to pack up the office and get it out of there, which was all done by the staff. There's a lot of work done by the people themselves and done in the effort of making things better.
Good.
Could you imagine if we monetized all the volunteer time in our towns?
I know.
Yep, all the committees.
It's the finance committee.
Yeah,
What's that worth? It's gotta be worth something.
I pay about, I think, how much do I pay to be on the committee?
Hey, moving along here. Fine, we had expense report. Becky, you sent us an updated expense report a couple of days ago, maybe a few days ago.
Yep.
Everybody probably had a chance to take a look. Is there any questions, concerns?
Yeah,
Either
I have a
from
few
Becky or
questions.
from others that have had a chance to look through it? George?
Yeah, just let me open it up. I looked at it the other day. I just got to remember where I put it.
Okay, while George is looking, anybody else have some? Susie?
I'm new at reading this report and I don't quite understand how the pages are organized. Some pages are not like, I don't know, they're all expenses of some, but one of them was, say, electrical inspections on page 6, line 003. So that says it's 111.97% spent. So is there a revenue that comes against that? And that's why it can be overspent now, or is there a lot of electricity flying around Shutesbury?
Susie, the budget is contained on pages 1 through 4.
Mm-hmm.
So once you leave 1 through 4, these are funds.
Mm-hmm.
Like on page 5, it's a Community Preservation Act. So
Yep,
it's all
yep.
the community preservation funds
Mm-hmm.
on projects. And then it's Fund 22 on the page you're talking about. And these are all revolving funds.
Okay, so the money will come back in.
Revolving. Let me just double check. Yeah. So their base revolving funds have a source of income.
Mm-hmm.
So for the recycling revolving fund, all the money from the sale of trash bags and the sale of Leverett stickers, transfer station stickers, go into it, and then expenses are paid by whatever department it is. So fire inspections money goes in from the inspections, and then is spent on paying whoever is administrating the fire inspections.
Okay, and so on page 8 for the school lunch, that may be recovered. Right now it's overspent, and I know sometimes school lunch has a problem, but that one, that may recover its funding. It may recover its expenses by funding that comes in later.
It may, but it's highly unlikely.
It usually doesn't, right?
It usually never does, and then the school has to transfer money into it. Bob?
Just want to ask you on page 2, under education, Amherst Pelham debt. It's 111.5%. What's that all about? Any idea?
Yep. They changed the amount. The final, the report I had when we prepared the budget was not final, it turned out, and so we are underfunded on that line, and we'll have to come to for a transfer.
Yeah.
And that happened pretty early in the fiscal year, I think, right? That was.
It happened
that was-
immediately, and it's one that on the debt report I had from January, when I put it in, changed later in the year and I didn't catch it.
Yeah.
That's a significant piece of change.
Yeah, we talked about this, I thought, some meetings ago. Maybe you weren't there.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think in July I brought it up.
Yeah, I missed there, so.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So can I ask about page 1, the town clerk's assistant?
I maxed it out.
You maxed it out. I know. What were you doing, Susie? So are
did
you
the
done?
elections. There were elections, and there was a ton of upfront work on elections. It didn't happen on election day because of all the mail-ins. And so I worked like crazy, and finally November got done, and there it is.
So
Where are we on, where on page 1 are we?
Is just a little bit farther than the middle. It's
Yeah.
line 151461112 below the OPEB.
Okay, yeah.
And that's our assistant town clerk.
No,
These
112.
elections were a
No,
nightmare.
111, line 111.
yeah, it's line 111, town clerk's assistant.
Oh, I gave you town collector, sorry. It's up higher.
So
It's
I
not
don't
lower.
expect to work at all, ever anymore.
Yeah, is that true? That's the deal?
Yep, her budget's spent.
So Susie has to start eating rice and beans now. Okay.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask about the notification line. I lost it. Here it is. Page 2, halfway down, emergency management phone notifications. Is that an annual subscription or is that a per notification charge?
Okay, so Susie brought this up earlier. The budget had been 2,000. The first year we contracted for it. We didn't contract till July, so we didn't have the information. And then there was talk of potentially, people were very unhappy with it during the second year. Because it, calls were being quoted from Korea. It was all kinds of crazy stuff was happening. So there was talk about going back to the old system. So I haven't reduced the budget yet, but I will this year because it sounds like Walter's pretty set on staying where he is. So it's changing. So the public outcry is quieting down. So we should be able to have, I think he wants 1550 in there. So we'll be able to reduce the budget by $450.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yeah, I was just curious how that was working. And then the other thing I had was I was really happy to see how we're doing on health insurance. What do you think, Becky? Are we going to be able to keep that up?
I'm hopeful. I think we might. That would help.
Yeah, it's a pretty big gap right now. So yeah, I'm feeling good about that. And now, if we may leave the operating budget, Susie was down on page 8. I was noticing that there was a line with balance, and Becky, I think you probably already explained it, but I wanted to go back down and just check it real quick with you. There was a line that has funds in it from the CARES Act. Is there not? Is that just not reflective of all the things that have been committed to it?
Correct. My
Line 713.
so this is,
Is that on?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first staunch of the way they've been doing, they came out, you had to apply in June, and then they sent the money. So when I applied in June, it was for election. It was all the porta potties, the tent, all of that was part of the first tranche. And it was $9,001 was the first grant request, or $9,004 that I applied for. Since that time, it's overspent because I know a new staunch of money has just come in for $122,000, just came in last week.
Okay.
The second application for money did not happen until October. So I've had to make only two applications. The second one was much larger than the first. But in between, I've had to make quarterly reports as we spend money. So this source of money that shows just to be the 9,004 will have another $122,000 added to it that you'll see. And then this is where it gets a little scary. It's like you apply for all these things in October, and then all these other things start to become possible. And so if they qualify, they tell you to go ahead and buy them or spend the funds, and then there'll be an audit after the whole thing finishes in January. But they're doing mini audits as we go on a quarterly basis.
You're keeping all your documents straight for when they
Yeah.
ask.
Yep.
Yeah,
I've got
because it was on, when
all
I was
these
looking for,
files right here. I can't show you, but there's like 7 or 8 different files for different time periods, different applications, and the reimbursements and the reporting.
a lot of the auditing is probably going to be done just electronically, right? They're not coming into our office. They're just going to ask you for schedules and
I would imagine, unless they have an egregious problem.
yeah,
But
right.
I've, you know, the more questionable areas, I did get I have an email trail of approval on. So
So it was on page 9. I think we all know that, right? And I see it says we only spent $9,600 of 129, but you're saying that's all been accounted for.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the one that has a negative $1,300 balance?
No, I'm talking about the one that has a positive $120,000 balance.
On page 9, it's line
Middle, yeah.
723.
70.
Got the wrong one. Right. Okay. Sorry. There's 2. My page 8 has the original one for 9,000. So I must have been confusing you.
Little, but that's not hard to do.
Yeah. So all these are different tranches of money. So that the first money was for the first batch, and some of that will have to be carried over here. And there's a third pot of money we've been using as well. The Board of Health got funding independently through the Eastern Hampshire, the Eastern Franklin district, health district. So they've been buying stuff outside of my books, even though I've been doing the purchasing for them. So we've also spent another 10 grand there.
Okay.
Thank you, George.
Hopefully they'll be coming up with some more money for you.
That'd be great. I just hope everything clears.
Susie,
So Becky, this is a lot more work for town administrators. Can you put in hours to the CARES Act to pay for your time?
Good question.
20,000?
Yeah. No, town administrators, this is what our job is usually like. Everything's new. It's always different. And because I'm already salaried, I can't get additional funding. But if we have to hire an assistant town clerk back for our next election, those funds I could pay for out of the CARES Act. But not this year, because what was budgeted
Well done.
was you can't pay for anything that was budgeted.
AJ,
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of flag for maybe future discussion, this school transportation line and issue.
Yeah,
And I
right,
think,
exactly.
I think a bunch of us felt like not totally satisfied with, kind of how that contract played out last year, just in terms of not, us not really receiving much of a discount given the reduction in the actual transportation costs. And so I just want to make sure that this year we can actually sort of be on top of that and see if there are ways for us to save some dollars, given that, there hasn't really been much school transportation and it's really just getting started now.
Just to agree with that and add to just a little bit, I wonder why that the bus company can't apply for some PPP loan, instead of like dipping into our pockets for their fixed costs, and they're obviously their employees were on unemployment. So my recollection of Doug's explication on this issue was that they were sensitive to the fixed cost of the operator. Well, I just wonder why he can't be directed to the government for some help,
Right.
Yeah.
The school budget is on the agenda for our January 12 meeting. Would that be an appropriate time to get into that with the, no? Becky's taking
Managed by the region.
Yeah, the issue, our contract is held by the region. We participate in the transportation with the region. So we are one of 4 towns that are in this contract.
Maybe the 4-town meeting would be a time to bring it up.
The next 4-town meeting?
Let's have more discussion. It potentially could be a place to do that.
We could also get some information. Some of this may have already be in the works. So asking questions about things more than making a decision about them is part of our.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I want to flag that we got the information that was available. The more information, the deeper you dig into this. This is a state-backed DESE, Department of Education policy that came forward to help make sure bus companies did not go under.
Right.
And so this is not just as simple as our local finance director. It's statewide. It's not just happening here. It's happened to, I've talked to other town administrators who have had similar experiences across the state. So I'm just flagging that it's not just looking more closely at the 165-page contract. It's about the policy that was put forward by the state. So, and that, maybe that'll help us figure out where to direct the frustration about it not being handled the way that we feel it should have been handled.
I mean, I'll just say one last thing about that. It's just, at a minimum, there's got to be significant fuel and maintenance expenses that the contractor didn't have, given, how many miles of transportation didn't happen last year and is not happening this year. And that's got to be worth some portion
lot
of
of
the
money.
contract.
Gas.
In the labor, like somebody said, they're on unemployment. To me,
And gas, right, yeah.
the state should put their money where their mouth is and talk to the transportation. We can do our part because we're one of the customers of the bus companies, but the bus companies serve many communities throughout the region. And so to me, it seems like the state should be working directly with them. That said, we are going to be stuck. As Becky said, I think Becky basically was saying, you got to see what the state's going to do and how they're going to help with this and to what extent are they going to mandate it.
They're worth the number something like of the cost of all of this bus transportation was 80,000 and we might have gotten back 5,000. It was something like that. I sort of remember those numbers.
Okay, so we got back about $5,000. Last year's contract, I think, was 65,000. And so for a quarter of the third of the, so it's for about a third of the year. It does, so out of a potential $22,000, we got 5. And the interesting thing is, though, Kosmiskas, who used to be our bus contractor, was the high bidder in the contract that was just signed. So this year, there's all, all towns are using this 5-star, I think it is. And so the question is Cosmiscus going to survive at all? Most towns, there is no competitive bid.
Hmm.
Usually when people go out to bid, there's one friggin' bid.
Yeah, because
And so if that company goes under,
Right.
you have the potential of no bids. And that means you have to buy enough buses for the system, and you've got a major problem on your hands. So this is not, the DESE was not acting frivolously. They were acting out of knowledge of the marketplace. And yeah, it would have been much better to get $22,000 back instead of $5. But that's, so we're talking about $17,000 last year that we potentially could have gotten, that we didn't get. And this year, maybe we could say it's 42,000 that we should get back, because the buses just started. I don't even know if they're running. I think it's one bus is running that I've seen. So I'm hopeful that, you guys, that we can get more back, but we'll have discussion about the whole marketplace and why.
It makes it more nuanced, but it's still something we should be looking into and talking about, I think.
Yes, definitely. And maybe I can get Doug to send that whole 165-page thing, the calculation on the rates and the assessment on how they.
Oh, please don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Susie,
On page 1, the Conscom expenses, line 700, are they having more expenses this year? They're at 74% of their expenses are out. Is there something going on? Is there going to be something going on?
They've had to do a lot of working with the NRADs. It's
Yeah.
taking a lot of activity and work.
Uh-huh.
And what we're going to find is our new land use clerk is very likely she'll be needing more hours than she currently has. And that will need to go to the personnel board, because she's already, since she started in September, maxed out her hours almost every week, and the special permit applications have not yet started to come to the planning board for the solar projects. So when they hit, it's gonna be even more to do.
Is some of that covered in the fees for the, recaptured in the fees to the permits?
I don't believe the clerk qualifies for that. All the consulting is covered by fees from the applicant, but our own clerk is, I believe, our responsibility. And luckily I spoke with her, and she would be available to take on a number of more, maybe 4 or 5 more hours if needed, when needed. It wouldn't be every week, but which would be very helpful, because Linda was in a position holding the other job at 25 hours. She couldn't have put in 20 hours a week legally for the town in that position. So another good it's helpful that those 2 positions have split to 2 different people at this point. Or else we'd be paying a lot of overtime, which is more expensive. Any other lines with questions?
all good?
It's all good with me.
All right. Do we want to get committee reports? Susie, did you finish up school? Anything else on school you wanted to include, or?
Nope, that's, they're going to be meeting this Thursday, so we'll see how things are rolling forward.
Yeah. What about capital planning, AJ or Bob? You guys, I think, have met since we,
No, we haven't.
since we met back last.
They're meeting on Thursday or
Meeting on Monday, right, AJ?
Monday?
Yeah, the meeting was postponed.
Oh, you haven't had a meeting?
We had a preliminary meeting. We're gonna be meeting with some applicants on Monday.
Okay.
All the applicants, I believe.
What about broadband?
Well, not a lot to report, and if I do report anything, we should probably do it next time because our monthly meeting is tomorrow. So that's when a lot of issues get hashed out and settled, and I'll know more to say then, but nothing this month has stood out of concern so far.
All right. Personnel, Melody isn't here, but Becky, is there anything that you want to comment on regarding personnel?
I think we're meeting on Thursday. Oh boy, maybe not. No, it's next Thursday. No, it can't be. There's supposed
No,
to
it
be an
can't be.
upcoming meeting, but it doesn't look like the new chair posted it.
Who's the new chair?
Ralph.
Okay.
Oh, that's,
So you
when's
still
that?
short one? Remember?
I'll have to contact Ralph. I wish I had thought of that yesterday.
Okay, any other committees reports? We're scheduling next meeting. We are scheduled for January 12th and to meet with the school for budget. We could, I guess, meet the 29th if we felt we had open items that we're running behind on. Does anybody feel a need to meet on the 29th of December? Or do you think we're good until January 12th?
Do you think the work of going over the cherry sheets and looking at things will fit into another meeting with other committees, or we could do a
Not
separate,
with the school.
now with the school, right?
Yeah, it would have to be the one after the school.
I think Susie makes the point. We should meet on the 29th. Let's just do it in an hour. There might be a couple other things.
Yeah, the 12th is almost a month from now.
There'll be a new expense report, and we can talk about this, and there'll be other developments.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so is everybody good for getting together on the 29th?
Yeah,
Sounds
We'll all
fine.
be full of holiday cheer then.
yeah.
Maybe I'll bring some to the meeting.
Huh?
My phone's ringing. I gotta go.
Okay, bye. Vicky.
All right, okay, so we're gonna meet on the,
If I go, you all go.
uh-oh.
Oh,
No, well, we can't
Okay.
go. We have
I
to,
make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Overnight, aye.
Grove's eye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye.
So that's the 29th.
Yeah,
29th.
we're gonna meet the 29th.
2 weeks.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Thank you.
Joy, stay warm.
Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.
Not shovel out. Bye-bye.
Right.